version to stream it, okay.
Will?
One special discussion of primary elections is underway. For the election and directed towards additional elections. August 3rd, 2021 special congressional primary election. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. I will move to acknowledge the ballot for August 3rd, 2021 special congressional primary election. Ballot policy by the schools. Any questions or comments? That's something we do every election. Right, so for every election. And what we're trying to do is, as soon as we can, bring it to a people. Always on. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. I will move for the final approval of the ballot for the August 3rd, 2020 special election. Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Preliminary approval of ballot approved.
Second. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Robin. Eliminating the echo. We have a protest hearing coming up, but the respondent just, I think, indicated to Ms. Walker that he's running a little late. So if, with the permission of my board members, thank you, Mr. Lawler, coming up. I will move on to these other matters and then we can circle back, okay? That's all right, thank you. I will move to acknowledge the candidate withdrawal for the September 14th, 2021 primary election. And that is the withdrawal of candidates from Garfield Heights Council Ward 3, Norman Leonard, and also withdrawal of candidates from the November 2nd, 2021 general election. That's Bedford Board of Education President Sharon Macklin, Berea President of Council Jay Hairston, and Berea Council Ward 1, Jonathan Montag. And then finally, the withdrawal of some issues from November 2nd, Village of Highland Hills has 2 matters that they are withdrawing from the ballot. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, and I'll move to, I move to acknowledge the candidate withdrawal for September 14th. That was my motion. We had a second. I will now move to acknowledge candidates and issues withdrawal for the November 2nd, 2021 general election ballot. There's a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will move to certify the candidates nominated without a primary, September 14th primary canceled. And that would be Garfield Heights Council Ward 3, certified Mr. Jason Cedar, as well as Garfield Heights Council Ward 3, Mark Smith. If there's a second. Second. Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will move to acknowledge the resignation from elected office of Judge KJ Montgomery. If there's a second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will move to authorize to pay 158 voting location managers $200. It's a total sum of $31,600. 173 voting location deputies at $200 apiece at $34,600. 1,679 precinct election officials at $172.10 for a total cost of $288,955.90. 158 sanitation officials at $200 apiece at $31,600. 75 election substitute officials at $100 for $7,500. And in August, for the August 3rd, 2021 special congressional primary election. If there's a second. Second. Thank you. Any question or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I'll move to authorize the process of payment, the amount not to exceed $15,575 for 55 private voting locations being used for the August 3rd, 2021 special congressional election. If there's a second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. If any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'll move to for the final authorization for the allocation of voting booths for the August 3rd, 2021 special election, congressional primary election. Allocation quantities are based on social distancing and room size per polling locations. A total of 2,319 voting booths will be allocated, plus 460 DS200s, precinct scanners, and 157 ADA Automark voting units and 632 electronic poll books. If there's a second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. I do have a question, Mr. Platty. Are any of these voting locations where we had long lines because of the distancing and the, reduced EPVs?
Yes, yes, they are. And so what this allocation does is we now have gotten as far as electronic poll books. We are back to the allocation levels that we were going when we thought we were going to be at the polls in March of 2020. So we're 100% with our electronic poll books. What is still socially distant is the voting booths. So we've taken some of the voting booths out to get more EPVs in, because from our experiences, that's where the logjam was, at the check-in, not at the voting booth. So we've gotten back to those levels. That should help us to move things along in this election.
Dave would agree. I think it was the EPVs where I saw the log jam. Once they got inside, it moved really quickly.
Yeah.
All right.
Another question, although you may cover this for your update on the election. Any changes to curbside voting, or do we anticipate any issues around curbside?
Do not anticipate any issues with curbside. The curbside voting has not been advertised at the state level like it was previously. I'm not going to say I'm going to cry about that. So, but it's still there and people are still doing it. We have seen a little bit of a tick up this year in the 3 elections we've already had. Nowhere near what it was in 2020, but when we go back to prior to 2020, it is a little bit higher than that. We have extra books out in the field again. It's now been hit on in training a little bit more than it was going into 2020. So I think we will be good, we'll be prepared. And we know too, if we see something right away, we can jump on it and we know, get another person.
I understand there's some clarification coming around curbside, that it's not supposed to be for convenience. But I don't know that we'll get that, in advance of our election, so.
Yeah,
It clearly was used for that in 2020. And our technology just doesn't support it. You can only check in one person in that car, and if there's 6 people in there, you've got to run back and forth 6 times, so.
yeah,
And these are bipartisan teams being taken away from the inside operation, so.
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, just want to make sure we're keeping an eye on that though, because, I think people got comfortable and it was, there was good reason people were concerned, but I don't think the original purpose was for that. It was for disabled voters, so, or people having health or other reasons that they couldn't get inside.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Let's just, this is on that subject, if hopefully this doesn't occur, if there were a mask mandate again, for August or September, are we in a position to kind of just turn the key and we're ready, or we're staffed for that already?
Yeah, so, yes, we are not requiring voters to wear masks or our workers. It's similar, the same to here. It is at their comfort level, what they want to do. At the poll places, we still will have, I call them science fair boards. They're the cardboard thing that will be divided between the voter and the person. So we have things like that in place, hand sanitizer. We are sending masks out to the poll places, not the same quantities that we did before. However, we have zone stations in the field, and those are our little mini command centers where that is going to be flush with other additional supplies should we need to dispatch anything else. And Victor's got a whole warehouse full of stuff here. So if we, worst came to worst, we could do that if it was on election day. If it's in advance, we have plenty of time and supplies to do it, and emergency management is always on call for us. Down at the Harvard Garage in Newburgh Heights, they have a stockpile of PPE there that they work with us, and they actually, our command center that we've been doing down at the Juvenile Justice Center, we actually have a public works employee in there in addition to the command center folks, where if need be, one of the things is they can bring in other county resources to pepper the municipalities in the election with whatever we need to.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That was item 13, correct? I think you just-
Right.
Yes, thank you. I will move to approve the voter information guide for all active voters for the September 14th, 2021 primary election here in the city of Cleveland. If there's a second. Second. Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I will move to approve the voucher that is set forth in our agenda package. If there's a second.
Second.
Any question or comment about the vouchers? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Sorry.
passes unanimously. All right. Why don't we, is Mr. McGee here? Is Mr. McGee here yet? We'll work a little longer with him. Why don't we'll move past the personnel agenda at this point. Why don't you give us some updates then, Director Plotty, if you're able?
Sure. So,
For new business.
yeah, so I've already started talking about the August 3rd election, so I'll just continue on with that and kind of work my way bottom up in new business. Vote by mail is going well. Application processing, we are on a day-to-day basis, so the applications we get in today will be processed today. I talked over in the department, and we think we've got about 600 applications that came in today. So we're still getting applications at a good clip. We have over to 20,000, which makes me happy, because when we had talked about, I think the last meeting, kind of what was turned out going to be, we were at a much lower number, and I had concerns. So now we are actually surpassed what I thought we would be, which I hope then means that we will get at least a 15% turnout. So we're doing well with that.
Still expecting 15?
Yeah, I'm hoping at least 15 now, because these numbers are looking good.
Right.
Now, we may see all of a sudden everyone decided that they wanted to come absentee and not go to election day, but I don't think that's the case, because Cleveland typically is more of an election day go to polls versus absentee, and that's kind of what's playing out. as far as with their absentee numbers. The most common error on the applications is what we expected, and we tried to pre-educate and continue to educate individuals, and that's individuals not selecting a party type, either Democrat or Republican, on the application. Without that, we cannot send them a ballot because, as we know, we have 2 ballot styles in this election. We have, though, so everyone knows, when we send out an application, there is an insert that makes a note that they need to designate a party type. If it comes in, it doesn't have that, we immediately send out a new application to them with a letter, and that letter points out what the flaw is, which is lack of a ballot type. So we do that right away. If there is a phone number or email on the application, we will then reach out and try to cure it over the phone or via email through that. It's on our social media regularly. The media, we've done it through Facebook Live and talking to them in other ways, and they've been pushing some of this out. So we had kind of a conversation with the Greater Cleveland Clergy Coalition. They are trying to help and pass the word. So we're trying to educate folks, but it's unfortunately it was expected, and it happens every primary, nothing unique to this one. We've had over 5,600 ballots come back, so that's 28%. That number goes up very quickly as we, now we're about 2 weeks out from election day, so we should hopefully hit a 90% return rate. Early person voting is also going very well. We've had over 1,400 voters come in. We're doing over 100 people per day, and that is good. So it's nice to you set it up, and you like to see people come in. They are. Poll workers, we have hired what we need. We've hired 110% of the poll workers needed, and the focus now is getting these people into training. We need to train. We have about 73% of people trained at this point, and our goal is to have 100 people per day trained between now through Sunday. And if we do that, we definitely will hit our 100% trained mark. We do have, between people doing online training and people actually attending in-person classes, we do have enough to do that 100 people per day.
Do we have repeat workers in that group?
We do have repeat workers in the group.
Do you know what amount or what percentage of that?
That I don't.
Is significant amount, or are we training people who have never been?
I would not say.
I'm just curious.
Actually, you know what?
You never said it to me later.
370 new people hired. 159 of those new ones have trained. So that would be of the 1,800 placed, 370. So that's probably
Those are
a
just
quarter.
the new,
That's the
never
new.
before work. That's pretty good. We have a good number of repeats.
Yes,
Right.
and a good number of repeats is good, just because not as many deer in the headlight looks on election day because they have someone under their belt. So we are on path to make our numbers for poll workers. And hopefully what we try to do is have that number at 100% a week out. This way, if we are a little bit below, we have that last week for some emergency stuff. So we're doing well there. Berman's, the moving company, started to pick up the voting equipment from the warehouse. So that equipment is tested, it's packed up, and that's ready to start making its way out to polling locations. Our electronic poll books are going through their final phases of testing. Things are going well with those poll books, and we will have those ready for distribute to the polls the Monday before election day. So we're on schedule and on time for all of our tasks. There is one thing that we are lacking in, and that's going to be the big push now. And any assistance that we can get from any of your contacts is election night workers working at the warehouse. After the polls close, school's not in session. So colleges aren't, high schools are, and they provide the vast majority of our election night workers. We don't have those resources available to us. So we're working with Mary Louise Madigan at the county to get something out to county employees, because that's something where they don't have to take time off. It is a post workday assignment for them. So we will be doing that. We'll be sending out something to the Democrat and Republican parties to have those sent out through the email chains. And I think John Cossack from Channel 5 is supposed to talk to him today at 1 o'clock. That'll be the primary focus on that conversation with them, just trying to get this out. And we've been trying to push this out. So
Also send out to our members, so we'll get people there.
great. $15 an hour. Basically, you plan on about 7:30 to 11:30. The more that come, then we kind of can stick to that schedule. So you're guaranteed $60 for the assignment.
Tony, have we reached out to the schools though, or the colleges, even though it's summer, and said, hey, is there any way you can help us bring people in? And they're just like, no, we don't.
Yes. So actually Brent Waller he typically reaches out to the colleges. He has done that and coming up with nothing. Another hard part of it too is it's August 3rd. And so people still are on family vacations and doing those types of things. It's summer, so they're just not interested. But no one wants to see me pushing those carts up the ramp again. And at least my heart doesn't want that. So I think we are in good shape. We're on time for everything. This is the one place where we're lacking though.
What about, the Bar Association has been a good provider of individuals that we reach out to them.
We have not.
I would, even though they may not get credit for, their service like they did before, but there may be people that are willing to do it.
To me, it's a great opportunity to see exactly some behind the scenes and what, you go and you vote your ballot. You're like, okay, now what happens? Well, you get to see some of that firsthand. So for me, maybe being
I don't know how many people are going to want to push carts, but you might get folks.
We'll find other things for them to do.
Yeah, there you go.
Kind of in line with your report, is anything else?
No, that was the main items.
Are you finding, we got a September 14th and we got a November 3rd. Is there a logistical issue here with your staff and with mobilizing and ballots, or it's just something you manage?
We are managing it. This is one of the roughest election cycles that we have. Typically, it's rough just with September and November, and we typically don't have a large August. Maybe it'll be one community. This is more than 50% of the county. So there's a lot of juggling. It's setting up tables, turning down, trying to make sure we can pack ballots and then have that space available to process vote by mail applications and things like that. This is probably a little bit of a calm before the storm because it's the first election. The September one gets real tricky as you're trying to finish up and certify August and you're preparing the September election. Really voting for September starts August 17th, and certify the election to August 23rd. And that is hard equipment coming in, getting ready to go back out. So we'll
be very busy.
Oh yeah, we'll be extremely busy, but we've done this before. It's a little bit more than what we've had to do in the past, but everyone kind of knows what they need to do, and they're thinking about today, but they're also thinking 2 to 3 steps ahead.
It is great. Thank you for that update. What's next?
All right. Let me talk about the biennial budget. So the County Office of Budget and Management, we knew that this was our budget year. We were waiting on them to give us a schedule and waiting on them to give us a base budget. That information now has come, and now of course everything is fast because they did not build in a lot of time to get things done. But we had started in advance trying to, working with Kendra to get things lined up. And so we will, just to recap, this board will have to approve our budget first. And then what we approve is what we send down to the county executive, and the county executive then will take a look and comments, questions, concerns, whatever that may be, and then it makes its way to county council. Kendra has been talking with representatives from the county's Office of Budget and Management, making them aware of some of the things that we want to accomplish. And so far, those have been very positive. They've been very willing to hear what we want to hear, what we have to say, and be supportive of some of the things we want to do. So that part is good. What we're looking at as far as timeline is we need to have our budget approved by the August 23rd meeting. And so what I want to do is I want to, at the August 16th board meeting, have that budget to everyone, and then we approve it at the 23rd. I want to get that budget to you a week prior to the August 16th meeting, so you can start to look over that. We can have some discussion on the 16th, and then come back on the 20th. It could be approved on the 16th, but we have time, we can come back on the 23rd, and then we can approve it at that point in time.
Is there any, I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
here on the 16th, I will be here on the 23rd, is there any way we can get it a little bit in advance of that meeting?
I want to get it out the week of like August 9th,
Oh, okay,
so that's so you can get that.
I could send any questions and comments then.
Definitely,
Great.
definitely. And so, the obvious part is we start off with our day-to-day operations, and so we need to fund that so we can continue to do what we do. That's obviously the basic part, but these are some things that I want to do additionally in this budget, in this 2-year budget cycle. That would be new, it would be additional funding. The first is just ongoing maintenance costs, and that is for some of these things that we've purchased with all the grant dollars that we've had. So for example, like today we approved these OPEX machines, the mail openers, the Agilus ballot sorter, some software for online training. So that stuff has all been paid really with grant dollars to this point. Now we need to have the annual maintenance covered in this contract. And we have, again, we've been setting the path with OBM on that, and they're very receptive to that. So that would be what I'm just calling kind of ongoing maintenance costs. I don't have any dollars today, but these are the concepts, and this is what Kendra and her team are working on crunching.
One question, there's not gonna be any more, unfortunately, use of grant, there's not gonna be any more grant money. I just found out that, the legislature is basically saying there will be no ability for us to collaborate, if you will, with non-governmental entities. So, the CTCL money, have we spent that all down?
I think except for maybe like 6,000 maybe.
Okay,
We got real close.
there won't be any, money to do that, that was kind of great that we had those dollars, that we did a lot of good stuff with it, but
It was a game changer.
it was a game changer, but my understanding is there will be no more, future opportunities to do that.
Yeah, I think they put it actually
bad.
into the state budget
Yeah.
bill, that you can't do it, and it is because, a couple of people had asked me, and my comment was that those things, we talk about them in bipartisan meetings and get buy-in, like, yeah, this is a good path forward, and we go through a fair procurement process and ultimately get bipartisan approval for the thing. So it's not like something's happening in the dark. And it was a great shot in the arm, and one of the reasons that we were able to do what we did in 2020. But
To your point, though, the budget dollars are gonna be really,
yes,
it's real money out of, real dollars coming out of our
Yes.
budget, government budget, so,
exactly.
all right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so this is all now with our real dollars. So the ongoing maintenance costs, wages, the county executive indicated when he sent over the document for agencies to plan a 2% wage increase in each year in 22 and 23. So we'll put the 2% across the board wage in for permanent employees. But also temporary employees, we currently are paying our temporary employees $12.50 an hour. I'd like to see if we can get that up as close to $15 an hour as possible. We are finding some challenges with recruiting temporary employees, and then even some of our current ones leaving us because they're going to retail establishments like Target and some of these fast food places that are paying $15 an hour. So I want to, see if we can be more competitive with that. So again, 1250 is where we are now. I think 15 would be a nice number. But if we can get any movement off of 1250, I think it's only helpful to our cause.
Have we put that number in the budget, or will we be putting the $15 into the budget?
We will put it into
Oh,
the
okay.
budget. So yeah, these are things that I want to put into
Oh,
the
okay,
budget.
yeah.
So we'll do that. Another thing I want to do is the poll workers, the election day pay. We've been paying $172.10 for over a decade. And what we're seeing this year, we knew that we would have some drop off because it's an odd year. But what we're getting now is comments, Becky and her team on the phone of people saying, it's not 250 anymore. No, I'm not doing it. So that's not a good thing. It is a long day. And so I would like to see us go back to what we paid in 2020 and see if the county will support that.
All for it.
250 for a poll worker, 275 for a BLM, and then like some of the ancillary things like the rover, get them to $15 an hour. People who ride in the vans from 65 to 100. Those are all things that we were doing in 2020. So that's what I want to see if the county will support that. It's good for the workers. It makes it so we can actually conduct elections. So want to see if we can do that. Go high, and then if we have to change, then at least we have some wiggle room, hopefully.
Well, I think to your point, if these individuals work 18 to 20 hours, and you take it down to 250, that's about $15 an hour. So
Exactly. And if you do it at the current rate, we don't want to say that number out loud because it's not a pretty number.
Well, it's hard to go. I mean, we all know that a lot of that was driven by the pandemic, so it's hazard pay, if you will, but you can't, it's hard to go back. You really can't go back from that perspective. So you get what you pay for.
And they're important roles, they're important jobs. Without those people, we fail.
That's right.
So we need them.
That's our biggest workforce,
Right.
4,000 one-day workers.
Yeah.
So I do want to put that in there, and so that has to deal with wages, so permanent, temporary, and our poll worker wages. We've had some unexpected costs that were not accounted for in our budget, so I want to cover those. First is, you may have seen me walked in, we have a generator outside. We typically get that for about the weekend before, but in the past 3 weeks, we've had 3 power outages in this area. And what that does is sometimes it's been during the day, during early in person, and we have a plan and we account for that. But the other time, this last time was on Saturday. Well, it takes out our computer room. And so we weren't working in this building on Saturday, but they were working at Halley Warehouse processing applications. And now they couldn't get into DIMS because DIMS is here and they didn't have power. So what the ultimate solution, and we've told this to the county before, is I want a permanent backup generator on this building because it's more than just elections. When we process statewide petitions and everything, you have to have power. However, until we can get them to get on board in this next biennial budget for the 5 elections that we do know of, the 2 in 22, gubernatorial primary in general, and then we have 3 that we know of in 23, May, September, November. I want to rent a generator for the full 30-day window for the entirety of the early in-person window. So when we're processing applications, when we're processing in-person voters, we don't have to worry about a power issue. I guess this last one on Saturday was from like here all the way down to 105th Street. So it's not unique just to our building.
Will there be some number crunching around whether it makes sense? I mean, this isn't something we just need in, for a short period of time. So, I mean, will there be some number crunching around permanent purchase of the generator versus just leasing the generator for elections or not?
So we've already asked the county to start quoting. We've asked them before, and nothing happened, and then we're asking again now, quote a permanent solution. So this wouldn't even be a permanent solution. It would be, something that's either anchored on the ground or up on the roof or something. And but until we can get that, this is the safeguard. And so hopefully they'll see that, look, if you're going to pay one way or another, and elections have to run. We have hard deadlines, we can't move. So
just go back to the power outage we had Saturday. This doesn't kick in automatically, or generator?
wasn't here.
It wasn't
It
here.
wasn't here. That thing showed up on Monday. Said enough's enough. So then we called and we got it.
Does it kick in automatically?
It will. Yes,
So no one would have to be here if the power went out.
that's correct. So it runs on, I don't know if it's on, probably diesel. And the county electricians come in, they tie in to the building, and that's all been done, and it will, yes, it's supposed to kick on by itself, so we don't have.
So the wiring is there, there's no cost to put the wiring in for a permanent solution? Or, I mean, just for the wiring?
They'll have to modify.
Oh, okay, for a permanent, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for the temporary, that work has been done, because you just can't plug it in. I'm by no way my electrician, but you can't David knows better. You blow all the fuses and everything, so there's special things. So we are gonna ask for that, until we get the permanent solution.
I had a question. We did previously talk about some building upgrades like carpet, maybe paint. Is that also included, or would this be the time to include that?
So, I am gonna get to that,
Okay.
and tell you, because that is on our radar here too.
Oh, good.
That's gonna be a additional initiative versus unexpected cost.
All
But another thing is the postal service has already increased postage one time this year, and they're planning to do it a second time this year. It's not just a stamp. They kind of, they have their whole schedule on bulk mail and this and that, which is what we use. So we're not going to not mail things. So we're going to ask, and Kendra will crunch the numbers on what the increased postage will be. We'll need that additional postage appropriation in our budget. But again, we won't mail anything less than what we currently do. So they need to come up with those funds. And then another thing I like to do is our private voting locations. We currently pay, we have about 100 of them in a countywide election, and pay them a fee of $300 to rent the building. And for years now, they're like, I don't know if we're gonna do it anymore. It's not enough, not enough. I'd like to increase that stipend somewhere between $400 and $500 for an election for a private location. We all know we don't like to change polling locations, so if we have one that's good, we want to stay there. The public locations are the majority or 2/3 of our locations. Those do not charge us a fee to rent. However, we do get charged back for, we can get charged back for custodial. And sometimes the custodial charges are way more than yeah, a couple extra $100 that we would pay a private location. So I'd like to go 500. So we haven't increased that in a long time either to what the pay would be for a private location. And that's the user location on election day. Get in there for a couple hours on Monday night, the Monday night organizational meeting. Plus they house, like I said, Berman's picking up our stuff. They house our equipment sometimes for a week, 10 days. So I think it's fair. And that's why I want to ask for that increase. So those are kind of what I'm figuring are kind of like some unexpected costs that we need to deal with. Additional initiatives that I want to do, the biggest is voting equipment. I just had a conversation again yesterday with the Secretary of State's office, trying to figure out exactly when we're going to buy this equipment. So you may remember Secretary of State, or at the last voting machine examiner meeting I was at, is now requiring all voting equipment cannot have a wireless component in it. And so people who, like Hart, who's one of our 3 vendors, they actually went through federal certification. They were trying to be on that meeting. The Secretary of State pulled it because they wanted to have this new criteria in place.
This is a proposed vendor, not an actual vendor.
Hart, one of our proposed vendors.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just to be clear.
Oh, I'm
for the
sorry,
record,
yeah. Right, one of the proposed vendors that we're
Right.
dealing with. So they can't do anything. They have to wait for some guidance from the Secretary of State's office. Clear Ballot is in federal certification, and so they need to know what's going on because, for example, Clear Ballot has a laptop that has a wireless card in it. Secretary of State won't approve that as equipment. So now they have to go out, get a different piece of equipment, take it through certification. I say all that to mean that this has now put a pause on proposed vendors being able to get equipment certified in the state of Ohio through voting machine examiners from the Secretary of State's office. Well, we're getting closer and closer to the end of the year. We have to be able to give a vendor enough time to actually manufacture the equipment because this stuff does not sit on shelves. They build to order because of what it is. So we've started to talk about if we don't know something really soon, and really soon meaning by like beginning in the middle of August, what's going to be at the certification, we will have to push implementation of a new equipment until the primary of 23. Now we've talked to Cleary, our current equipment will make it. It will work fine. We have enough of it. It still works well. We don't have to worry about that. The auto marks, yeah, they break down, but we have such a huge stockpile that we can take out of service and replace it with something else. So that may be coming. However, we won't stop with our procurement process. Instead of rushing though to get it done by the end of this year, we'll probably in the first quarter of next year and say, hey, here you go. And then we would take it, at a good pace and have everything ready to go. We would use our current ES&S equipment for 22. We can even have stuff starting to come in the midsummer or whatever it is, depending on who we select, and we could go that path. So that's not part of the budget, that equipment, but just so you know, that's kind of like where we are timeline with that. However, there's ancillary items that we will need to buy that are not covered with the capital dollars. Bags, carts, new things like that. And that is dependent on the vendor you choose because you need to get something that handles the actual footprint of what that is. We, in last budget cycle, the one we're in right now, we gave the county council, county executive, the heads up, this is coming. Just know we don't have a dollar amount. We will do that again in this one. However, we will let them know that the purchase will be made in this biennial budget cycle, most likely 2022. And then we will come with our list of this is what we need to support it, reminding them that we get up to 10.4 million from the state. We may need them to pony up somewhere between 500,000 and $1 million to support that, which in my opinion is a good deal.
Is there a deadline? I thought there was a deadline by which we had to actually purchase the equipment. So in order to access the $10.4 million. So is the Secretary of State aware that, these clauses because of the wireless, no wireless component requirement now is going to set us back? Is there going to be a willingness to extend the deadline in order to make sure we still get to use that money?
So they are aware, and I think that deadline is maybe like July 1st of 23.
So we'll still make it in time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll still, and I think that's where their approach is. They listen, they're concerned, but they also know that, well, we got until July of 20.
Could you confirm that?
Yeah.
I mean, let us know it's July of 23.
Yes.
Additionally, would an option be when you go to I understand the challenge because what are we going to, what's the support materials we need? Is that something they say, well, come back to us and ask for the ask when you know exactly who you're purchasing, what equipment you're purchasing, and you get a better idea how much you need?
County Council?
Yeah, I mean, that's something they could say, carve this out right now and come back to us.
Yes. So we won't tell them a dollar amount. Like we'll be able to calculate like funds for poll worker pay and things like that, but this part we won't, but we can give them generalities, basically are to be determined. We kind of been telling them that from the initial guidance we've got, we said as much as you can figure, it would be nice to come at that point in time when you are, because we do have to send it after we approve it here, we have to send it down there. They would like to deal with as much as they can in the same meeting, so they can just say, hey, we got 10.4 million, but however, this is what we're spending. But they also understand that we may not be able to do that, or we may have to come back a second time when we really had a better chance to figure out what we need.
What's the next equipment meeting for this day?
We're scheduled based on
So
applications.
this isn't going to get approved in August. I mean, the equipment for HART or for Clear Ballot for ESNS.
I unofficially said, was told yesterday, there won't be a July meeting. Which I kind of assumed that, but, and I said, well, it doesn't seem like August is really an opportunity because again, so even someone like ESNS who we currently have, they have to go to the lab. Now, they don't have to take their wireless out because it's an existing piece, but the test lab needs to say, yes, it's in there, and yes, it's defunct or doesn't
So
work.
without getting too deep in the weeds here, could you at some point give us, the board, a summary of where you're at with this whole issue with all three vendors, EAC, statewide? I know we're all interested in knowing and what the game plan is to going forward. I mean, I think you've done a good job. There may be other questions from the board members for you, but I think if you can get it in writing to us, that'd be a big help.
Most definitely, yeah. And so this was kind of was a digress, but that's because I wanted to talk about the ancillary stuff. But we definitely will. Tony has been working very close with Peter James on.
Well, it's a big deal. So
Yeah. Okay. Another thing that I want to ask for, and this would probably just be like a one-time ask of about 50,000, is for cybersecurity and data backup devices and support that we need. And this is all related to cybersecurity. So there's something I think Joe said before, it was nice because we used to get some grant dollars to pay for some of this, and that will be dried up. And in talking with Robin, there is, he believes, one more piece of hardware and service that we need. We are in compliance, but also Robin has a monthly phone call with the Secretary of State's office IT department. And from what he sees on the horizon, this will probably put us in a good spot. So we will ask for that. And so we know cybersecurity is not going away. It's only being enhanced. To Lisa's point, one of the things that we want to focus on in this budget cycle is capital projects and ongoing maintenance. Capital projects, the way that we are defining capital projects, are the bigger ticket items that wouldn't be in our budget, but we've already provided some of this list of this stuff to the county where they need to go in and just as part of the county's general operating budget, they create and fund a project. So that would be things like the carpeting here in the building, which actually a longtime employee here said was able to pin it down. This carpeting was installed in 1987.
I have to agree. I mean, we don't want to spend money on, unnecessary things. It's not about aesthetics.
Mhm.
It's pretty bad.
It is
Carpet is bad. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is.
So-
I mean,
And,
yeah.
But so we're going to work
I
that.
never noticed.
You never, yeah. You're just looking at the brickwork. Outside the building. But even that, for example, brickwork, like the building was tuck pointed, I think, just on the south side. It was never tuck pointed at east, west, or north. It probably needs that. And the caps on the top or some of them need repaired because there's water getting in. So that's capital project stuff.
yeah.
So we want to push hard, and it sometimes it'll become to all four of you for whatever influence or kind of conversations you can have with county council members or county executive staff to move some of the stuff along, because it's overdue and this building has been neglected. So we're going to be pushing that. However, what we're going to be asking for also is something that we're going to kind of be calling ongoing maintenance and get a line item for some of those things. And examples of something like that would be something like in our stairwells, it needs new emergency lighting. It does not all of it works, doesn't work well. The county won't do a capital project because the dollar amount isn't enough, but it needs to be done. So we want to be able to have funding for things like that, or the blinds that we have. We have new blinds on this floor, but not on the other ones. Half of them are missing the tines and all this other kind of stuff. So you got to be able to do that to block the sun so you can see your computer monitor. So we are going to, for the first time, be asking for something on that, as well as pushing the capital projects, because we just can't be neglected anymore. So we will be, and we're thinking maybe asking for somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 for the our ongoing maintenance part, and see what that gets. That's something then too where we bid that. Typically the county, like in this building, the county does the work. Maybe we would buy the blinds, but the carpenters would come and install them, that kind of stuff. So we do want to do that. And the last thing, and this is just kind of giving the county council and executive a heads up, and I want to give you this heads up too. This is kind of like with equipment. Before we were telling them, hey, this is on the horizon. We're starting to hear more chatter from Secretary of State's office that at some point in the future, and we don't know what the future is, I don't think it's going to be this upcoming budget cycle, but they're going to start telling boards of elections that you need to replace your electronic poll books. They work, but because of all the focus on cybersecurity, these are off-the-shelf things. So like our iPad is kind of like a phone. You can only update it so much, and then you can't put any additional things. So I think at some point they're going to come and say, you need to update that stuff. It'd be great if it was funded through the state, but I don't know if it would be, because it's not necessarily the initial rollout, it's maintenance. So I want to start to make them aware that we may have to do this. What I'm thinking is maybe the 24-25 cycle. Our books will be about 8 years old. Again, they work fine, but for the cybersecurity stuff that they keep pushing, we may not be able to get some of that done, and I don't want people to get caught off guard. So that's just going to be a general information thing in there to them, so they can hopefully get it on the radar. Or if all of a sudden it does happen, they won't say, well, you never said anything. No, it's in there.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, well, thank you for that update. And on to the investigation regarding petitions from Justin Bibb.
Okay. So, and I'll start this off. I don't know if Mark will take over or not, because he was the primary person, but if you remember at last meeting, we certified Justin Bibb to the ballot. He's a candidate for mayor in the city of Cleveland. And what staff had found was on some of the part petitions, there were one or more addresses in one of the signer rows where it was crossed off, an address was crossed off, and a new address was written. The crossed off address would have been an invalid line on the petition, and the correct address was written above it. That new address was not initialed. The penmanship across all the part petitions seemed pretty uniform, and it didn't match the actual circulator, because it was a variety of circulators who had these. We did not include any signatures on any of those part petitions in our totals to certify to the ballot. So Justin Bibb made it without those. However, they were unusual altercations. We looked into it further. And Mark worked with the campaigns.
So let me,
Yeah.
excuse me for interrupting, Mr. Plotty. So we have a summary of what was done in the investigation. There was is, as you point out, the issue that was raised by staff was this, someone changing the addresses.
Right.
And Mark, why don't you pick it up from there? I mean, we had a summary, we see their affidavits in here, they all point to one individual doing it. And so why don't you just give us a summary then, of where you're at?
Sure. As Tony indicated, I worked with the campaign to try to figure out this irregularity and try to get a better sense of what happened. The campaign was very forthcoming and very cooperative in helping us determine, or at least get an idea of what happened with these park petitions and why these different irregularities occurred. So over the past month or so, we were able to get affidavits from 6 of the circulators of the 22 altered park petitions. I'm sorry, 22 of the circulators of the park petitions describing, or a sworn statement stating that these strike-offs were not present when they collected the signature. That they did not, the signer did not strike it, and they did not strike it. And when they turned in the petitions, the addresses were unaltered.
What, excuse me? So they think they turned them in unaltered and
To the campaign, correct. So to the campaign provided an affidavit stating their process for collating, collecting these park petitions prior to their submission to the board for filing. And their the campaign manager stated that the one individual had custody of the park petitions. They were the collection point, and they had sole custody of it as they were brought in through filing with the campaign. They were unaware of any kind of alterations. So something happened in between the circulator turning them into the central collection point and then the petitions being submitted to the board. So we think we have a good idea of, there was, at least there's an inference that this central collection point, this individual, took the petitions, cross-checked the addresses on those park petitions against the registration information here at the board, struck out any addresses that were not matching that database, and then entering the correct voter registered address for that individual.
I have a question. When you sign a petition, are you allowed to just sign it and have somebody else fill out the rest?
The law says that the signer needs to enter their address. There's a Supreme Court case out there saying when you do that, you are giving some implied or express consent for someone else to enter in the address, unless there's something that might contradict that implied consent. Here, we have the signers entering in their address. So, and then somebody else striking it out and writing it in there. So there's an indication.
Excuse me, at a later date.
At a later date. So there's an indication that there is no implied
Consent.
consent to alter their address that they enter, which is a problem.
So somebody could fill out the address. Is what you're saying.
If it's left blank, there's a case out there by the Supreme Court saying that there's an implied consent for someone else.
What about the printing of the name?
No, the signing and printing the name, and that it needs to be the individual.
Those are excellent questions, Ms. Wondolowski, and I imagine it's fact specific. I mean, you're gonna have to.
They're
look
more
at each one.
excellent for, they're more pertinent to the other case I'm trying to hear today because these petitions will kill your life.
So, I mean, Mr. Puente's got an affidavit in here in our package. He's the campaign manager for BID. He's the one that goes into great detail and indicates there's an individual named Ken Johnson.
Correct.
Did we reach out to Mr. Johnson and ask him what happened?
We had not.
Okay, no one's called Mr. Johnson up?
No.
All right, but that would, your investigation would seem to lead that would be the person you want to talk to next.
There's certainly an interest or a reasonable belief that he was.
So if that's the case, I think this is the sort of investigation we need to take place. I think we could issue a subpoena and require him to come to our next meeting. And
Do we need to do that step, or can we just refer to the prosecutor at this point? We've determined the irregularity, we've identified the potential person. I mean, at one point, the prosecutor's office was saying they wanted us, to your point, Jeff, to have, create a record, have a hearing, but it wasn't exactly required. I'm happy to proceed in whatever way our group wants to go, but it just seems to me, we've already done the investigation. or staff done the investigation, we could make a referral at this point, or no?
Excellent question. I don't think we're done investigating because we haven't talked to Mr. Johnson. I mean, that's my position.
No, but is a question for us to do it, or is this sufficient to go to
I think it's I think it's the board's job to ask him, and he can come in and put under oath or not. He may not show up. I mean, I think then we're done, but we've talked to everybody, but the person that they seem to be pointing to, you know.
I mean, the board has the duty to investigate, and it has a discretion whether or not to continue to investigate or whether it's satisfied based on this kind of initial collection of facts. There is the one question of this implied consent. Maybe you want to ask Mr. Johnson if he did have the consent. He was one of the circulators that turned in a number of these part petitions that had altered signatures. So it's possible that he did have the permission of those voters to make those changes.
I don't think we're done investigating until we talk to this individual, and then from that point, I think we're done. We'll decide what to do at that point, but that's my thoughts. I think board members say.
I agree. I think
Just ask him to come in and see what happens. So thank you.
That's fine, sure.
I think that we're emphasizing the seriousness of what's taking place.
In light of all this talk about election security and this and that, it's clear to me that Mr. Bibb or his campaign weren't involved in this. They cooperated, they provided us the information we need.
I think that's right.
Right, and it's just at this point, maybe Mr. Johnson comes in, we'll see where it goes. So I will move to issue a subpoena and request Mr. Johnson to attend our next meeting, August 16th. Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any question or comment then? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion passes, and I'll defer to you, Director Claudia.
Yeah, so different, still on bid, but different, and wanted to just see if the board at some point would be interested in entertaining. When we did, so these part petitions that are in question, we did not include any of those numbers in our certification for him to the ballot. However, on those part petitions, there's a lot of unaltered signature lines that we had not given those voters voter activity because those petitions, we held that out. Had this altercations not happened, those individuals would have. Now, I'm not saying the ones that have been struck through. I'm talking about the other ones that have not been modified. And if the board at some point would entertain us allowing to give voter activity for those that through our processes we deem to be valid.
There isn't any reason they couldn't, right? I mean,
No, the remedy for when you strike an improper strike off from a petition is to still count those petitions appearing on that part petition where the irregularity occurred. So,
I make a motion. I mean, we don't want to deny people that actually participated in the process and actively participated and need to get credit for having even signed the petition so they don't get purged. I would move that we absolutely count those signatures where they're valid and there's no
They
reason.
didn't cost them.
Yeah, not the strike throughs, but yeah. But
I know there was a second of motion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
My question is, so I put 1, 2, 3 down and it's the wrong address. Do I still get voter activity signing that petition? Or even though I put a wrong address down?
Not, is Betty here?
Yes.
Do we don't get voter activity for invalid lines,
No, we do not.
just valid lines.
Okay, so,
That would make sense to me.
Yeah,
so those people that were crossed off with the wrong address weren't gonna get counted anyways.
that is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else, Director Claudia, on this matter?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, we're done with new business then. Mr. McGee, is Mr. McGee here?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mr. McGee, great. We'll go ahead with that hearing then. We have a protest hearing filed by Shalira Taylor regarding, yes, Ms. Taylor's here, yes. And regarding Tawan McGee's petition for Cleveland City Council Ward 2, our manager Lawler, Petition Services here to update us on where we're at.
Good morning, Brent Waller, Candidate Manager, Candidate Petition Services. Ms. Taylor filed a protest against fellow candidate, Mr. McGee, for sufficiency of signatures for Cleveland Council Ward 12. There were 7 questionable lines that she brought forward. She met with registration manager Betty Edwards and Deputy Director Gallagher, and it's my understanding that they agreed that 3 of them would be not brought forward. And so on the overview that we provided to you on the third page, there are,
Excuse me, Mr. Lawler, and this is what's important. Are we able to, can we project anything? So all the board, we're looking at the same documents or no? Okay, I just want to, so I just want to make sure all the board members are looking at the same document you're referring to because it's kind of
this one,
visual, and that is
this is my overview.
July 1st
Yes,
overview? Okay, thank you.
if we go to the third page, with the top, it's highlighted in yellow.
Registration. It says registration manager.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Those are the four remaining issues that we asked the board to consider. The first one is petition 3, line 10. The board, the candidate, and
Excuse me, but I'm sorry to interrupt you too. I just want to make sure we're, because we've got something from Mr. Musson too.
Okay.
It's a summary, and he's got petitions attached here. So I just want to make sure we're at the right petition. Are you referring to?
so when you look at the petitions,
Yes.
there's a number on each side. You want the number on the right side, that's the number
Okay,
we would refer to. That's
All
the
right.
board number.
so you're referring to part petition 3, and I see there's a petition, it has a 15 on the left side and a 3 on the right side.
Correct.
All right, and so we're looking at line 10 then?
And that looks to be the same one that Mark's identified as number 1 in the summary. he
Correct.
provided.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
That's okay. Line 10 is marked as 3616 when the temporary staff validated that they submitted as a good address. It really is not, it should be 3617. We all agreed that that particular one should be not counted.
Yes.
Okay,
So he had 201 valid signatures. He needs 200. We're taking one away. We agree with that. He's down to 200. So of the remaining 3 that are in question, if the board rules against any one of those 3, then we would not have enough signatures and it would be not on the ballot.
so, and I mean, the next one down, it says part petition 8, line 8.
Correct.
That, just to read the address, 36, I want to find that petition. It's kind of buried in this list here that I have. So it's not immediately after. That's 8-5, okay.
It's 3610, or Jacqueline West is the person, I think. Is that the
Sorry, I
one?
thought I gave you. I took this
We're
one.
looking
I got it.
at,
That's correct.
And then there's 117, okay. All right, so I guess what I'm hearing, Mr. Waller, is there's stipulation, and we'll hear from Mr. that it's these 3, part petition 8, petition 1, and petition 17,
Correct.
that Ms. Taylor's having an issue with.
Correct.
Our staff has determined that they are valid and should be counted. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how many ayes come to that conclusion? If you can tell me, you know,
At least 3.
yours,
Myself, Eddie, and Tony,
Tony
and Tony.
P, Tony P and Tony K.
Yes.
So you've all looked at that yourselves and came to the conclusion. Did you do some of that blindly?
Yes, I actually sat with him and actually asked him, as the director, could you read that to me? He read what we read.
Okay,
Just
so,
like that, Joe just read it off, looking at it.
yeah.
right, so, I mean, would you tell us the due
We didn't tell-
diligence?
Yeah, we didn't tell him what the issue was, so.
Okay.
So the only caveat that we want to say is for the one that is the West 23rd versus the West 25th Street, which is petition 17. Mr. Callagher has a map from GIS. There is no house on West 25th Street. It's the middle, actually the middle of the street. You can show it to just for point of reference.
I think Mr. McGee too submitted the paperwork in support of that also.
Okay.
Same point.
Yeah, but we actually, in our GIS, show it to you visually because we think it's easier to look that way.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board members to Mr. Lawler before?
12-1 where the signature page, is that, was that counted?
Yes, it's actually on the petition. If you want to, I have the originals, you can actually see it on the petition.
Or you can see it on the petition, it's not on the copy.
Would you like to see it?
Yeah, that's,
What petition is it?
I think he's talking, am I right?
12-1, line
Line
1, line 1.
the one that fades out, Brent.
Petition.
Okay.
Can you guys pass that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looks like the pen was running out of ink there.
Oh, okay. You saw it.
So I have, I'm organized now, so I've got the three petitions that, or the three, part petitions that there's Mr. Taylor's having a protest over. Are there any other questions for Mr. Lawler before I bring in?
317, is the one I think we just talked about, but what does that say there? It's not
What petition are you referring to?
the one marked 317.
Part petition 17?
Part, yeah, three.
Yeah, line 1, the street address.
Petition 17. Line what?
What?
Line 1, right.
It's the street address. That's the determination. We're asking you to look at.
What is it? It looks like West 25th. Is it not West 25th? What is
West
it?
23rd.
West
As
23rd.
we said, West 25th doesn't exist anywhere.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you have
It's in the middle of the street. That's the map we showed you.
So maybe a penmanship issue?
I mean,
I see.
You're the original.
So let me bring up this, are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Because I think yours are excellent questions.
Yeah.
And
Stay.
stay at the ready,
Yep.
okay, to speak. But Ms. Taylor, you filed a protest. May you come up here, please, and, in support of your position? And while you're doing that, Ms. Taylor, we did receive, a summary from our attorney, Mr. Musson, looking at these, and just a couple things. The burden of proof here is clear and convincing evidence, okay? Our staff has recommended that these signatures be counted and be placed in the ballot. You're challenging that, so you have to bring evidence that's clear and convincing for this board to make a determination. Secondly, the law is fairly clear that we're to liberally construe access to the ballot when in doubt. So, those are some of the things I know the board members here will be thinking as they ask you questions. Why don't you proceed? Let me put you under oath, okay? You swear to tell the truth? Well, Steve, you do that. It's more official that way.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Taylor. You may speak, and some of the board members may interrupt you with questions during this process, and then Mr. McGee, of course, will be given an opportunity to speak too. Go ahead.
So, as I checked over, Mr. McGee's signatures, as we all agree on the page 3, line 10, that 3616 was actually the 3617 and was removed. I guess the real ones in question are if the faded address would be accepted according to the board.
Excuse me, Ms. Taylor, just so we're sure we're all looking at the same thing.
Okay.
Do you agree that, you stipulate to or agree that there are 3 part petitions that we have an issue, do you have an issue with?
Yes.
And why don't we take the first one, part petition 8, line 8. Do you have that in front of you?
So I have different numbers than you, I think.
Yeah, well, that's,
Well, I have just the page that we went over, and so.
I want to make sure we're looking at the same document, okay? So, Brett, could you show her part petition 8, line 8, so she can, in a position to at least explain to the board why she thinks it shouldn't count?
5, 8, got it,
Okay.
So petition, 8, line 8, was 3618, and the Board of Elections records is 3610.
So let me just interrupt you. Part petition, line 8 and line 8. Okay, I'm gonna look. 6, 7, 8. Okay, so your position, the staff's position is that 3610. And your argument to the board is what? It should be what?
Well, actually, this was one that Betty and I and one other person, I think it was gentleman here, we agreed that, this one could be taken off because when we looked at her, this person's registration, there's zeros in 2000.
Actually, when you see could be taken off, what do you mean? Taken off your
Removed
protest?
From my protest.
Protest. So
Yes.
you think it should be counted?
No, it should not be counted in this protest.
Okay. I'm
She doesn't
confused.
want to count in the protest, so she's
Yes.
withdrawing it.
You
I'm
would-
withdrawing.
Okay,
Correct.
thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
you.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
Let's move on then to part petition 1, line 17, and Brett, can you make sure that she's,
That's the form.
so we're looking at part petition 1, line 17, and I'm just gonna read the address 4217, which is the address on file. It says protester believes that address is 4277, is that correct?
Correct.
And why do you believe that's the case?
Because when we looked at the voter registration, the sevens and the ones were very clear. This person made their sevens and their ones very clear on all of their other documents and even on the dates. And the sevens, the two numbers after the 4 and the 2 look exactly the same.
Look like you believe they say what
7-7.
instead of 1-7.
Okay, and we're all looking at ourselves.
So the 4217 is what it should read, and you're saying that line 17 is 4277.
Correct. In addition to further, that signature didn't match, but
The signature, do
that signature does not, I have the.
you have the signature card?
Yeah.
So Brent, is that something she's brought up before?
That is not part of the
No.
form.
Okay, that's not part of the protest.
No.
Right.
Okay, so that's your position. Mr. McGee's here.
Yes, I am.
I mean, how, this is really, I mean, and I don't know that, I mean, it's really our staff's interpretation here. I know, Mr. McGee, you have a self-interest here. Why don't you, well, let's go to part petition 17-1, and then we'll have Mr. McGee come up, okay? And let me just say, our staff has said the address as written can be West 23rd Street or West 25th Street. The address in the database is West 23rd Street. The address 3953 West 25th Street does not exist. I don't think there's a dispute about that fact. So, I don't know if the board members have that petition they're looking at. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Taylor.
If you look at the same person's voter registrations, their 3s and their 5s are very clear. And they're, the 3 that was written on the petition looks like a clear 5 from their voter registration.
Do we have the original of this 3017 line 1? Is this what it is you handed me?
Which one? What position?
It's 317 line 1 street address,
You have the original card?
the original petition.
What petition number?
23rd and 25th. 17.
Yeah, I remember having, yeah, this one. Too many numbers. Yeah, yes, I think this is it. Oh, yes, okay. Okay, and what is it supposed to read?
West 23rd.
This was 23rd.
I mean, I'm not a handwriting expert. I mean, it just seems like the 5s, look, even on that line, look different than the west. Where it looks like there wasn't an intent for that to be a 3. And if you look at 395, the first, and then look at the date, 5, there's almost like the hook on top of the 5 doesn't extend. So I'm not so sure that's West 25th and the, I mean, it seems like it could be West 23rd to me.
So, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, correct.
With a liberal view of it, yeah, I think so too.
Oh, I think that's supposed to be street after, okay.
Yeah.
151.
I mean, there's a very clear hook on the, at the top of the 5 on, at the first part of the address and then even on the date of signing. I mean, I don't know. People are writing quickly on these things. I mean, it's hard to know.
So, but let me just, thank you. Ms. Taylor, just kind of summarize, because we've stipulated there are two petitions you're challenging, part petitions. One is part petition 1, line 17, and that interpretation is 4217, you believe should be, and our staff has said it's 4277. And then finally, on part petition 17,
Our staff thinks it's
I think
4277
that's-
also.
yes,
No,
I'm sorry,
that was
4217 is the address on file.
Right.
She thinks it should be. I mean, it's 4277, and then finally, the one we're just looking at that I have in front of me is that it should be read West 20, you think it should be West 25th Street, not West 23rd Street, correct? Is there anything you want to add to that?
To the addresses,
Yeah, to your position.
after, like I said, after looking at voter registrations with your staff, like we said, we were not handwriting experts, but from the look of it, the West 25th and the West 23rd could be West 25th.
That's, a lot of what your position is right in front of us, you're right, it's not, you have to argue some, I think we can all agree, we're looking at the same signatures, it's just how the board will, anything you want to add, otherwise I'll have Mr. McGee come.
On further discovery, I was actually going back through video and realized I spoke to some of Mr. McGee's staff on the street that was collecting signatures for him. And according to Mr. McGee, he signed the back of all of his petitions saying that he witnessed every single signature being signed. But on March 9th, 2021, because the guy signed my petition, Terry Green collected signatures for him, and that ballot is.
I'm sorry, Ms. Taylor, are you now protesting that he didn't sign these?
He at least didn't do this one,
He
I
didn't.
believe.
So but that's not the protest you brought to the board.
No, that was discovered afterwards.
I don't know that we're going to be hearing that because it wasn't brought to us. What's been brought to us is the signatures. Okay. Am I correct, Mr. Waller? That was.
Yes, and if people file for protest, and specifically, we've made a comment, whatever you're filing is your protest, there's no supplemental additional information. It's not fair to the board or the other candidates, and now somebody has to determine today if this person goes to the ballot or not. Because we have to do something.
You have to make ballots.
I want to clarify again, there's 3 signatures.
2.
Okay, which 2 are they again? Just
It's this petition 1 in the right hand. It's got a 1 up here. Line 17. Line 17 and petition 1. Just circle it.
this one, and that's the 40,
And
okay.
the other's the exact opposite, that's why it's
And
confusing.
the other one is what?
Is part 17 on the right.
Line 1.
Line 1. There
Yeah,
you go. So those are the 2. Ms. Taylor is protesting those address interpretations by staff. Staff has said they are valid. Ms. Taylor says, take a look forward. I don't think they are. Is there anything else you want to add regards to the addresses, Ms. Taylor? Okay. Any questions from the board members for Ms. Taylor? Additional questions? Okay, hearing on Mr. McGee. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. And Mr. McGee, do you want to be heard, sir?
Oh, yes, I was fan.
Now, you can come up here, Mr. McGee. Yeah, please. Okay, why don't you state your name and your address, and we'll put you under oath, okay?
Oh, yes, Twain McGee, 3103 Vincent Avenue, apartment 302, Cleveland, Ohio, 44109.
Thank you. Mr. T, raise your hand.
You solemnly swear the testimony about to give me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Mr. McGee, you've heard our questions, you've heard our staff's positions. Staff's positions is that you have 200 valid signatures, and if that's the case, the staff, well, I think is recommending that we certify you to the ballot. Ms. Taylor has challenged the staff's interpretation on 2 specific petitions. Is there anything you want to add?
No, currently, I'm with the process, just to go through the 4217 Vincent Avenue, that is indeed a 17, not a 77.
Okay.
I witnessed it myself as a statement going around with all handwriting messages.
And excuse me, Mr. McGee, you submitted to the board too, in addition, the other address in question, you point out to the board that that address at West 25th Street doesn't exist. And remember you sent something in to us?
Yeah, based on the website, was that Cuyahoga County, .ohio, .myplace.ohio.com. You can search the address in the Cleveland city. It doesn't exist on the.
That's not a dispute, but West 23rd Street does exist.
Yes.
Right, okay. Anything else you want to add?
Well. 3610, the one question they said thought it was an 8, that is, and that we.
That's not an issue anymore.
Not an issue. Okay.
Not an issue anymore.
Just but yeah, that should,
Okay. Are there any questions from the board members for Mr. McGee? I don't have any. Well, thank you, Mr. McGee. I appreciate it. All right, thank you, sir. All right. I think we've had a full hearing here. Any questions or comments among ourselves?
I have a question. What is the status with the date, the issue of the date? I guess it's 1813 line 1.
What petition are you looking at?
Petition 18-13
This one
/ 13 line 1 date. It's number 7 in your memo. I guess there's an interpretation. This is, it's a question, does it say like 1/6/13? I guess what is the situation with dates in terms of how accurate the dates have to be? Because I know there's a match to signature. That's a question I have.
Mr. Henry, mistaken. The date, the petition signature needs to have the date of the signature. When it comes down to a question of legibility or interpretation, it's it's really not clear what the law is, but the petition signature does have to have the date that it was signed. And I think it's just an
require a
interpretation.
year though. I mean, okay,
Doesn't
that's
require.
No,
that's
no,
a
it
question I
requires
have.
the date.
Okay.
It cannot be a year ahead of the date of the petition submission.
Sure, it can't be a date like that's earlier than what the date is in the petition circulating,
Correct.
obviously.
Correct.
But I just was curious about the year needing to be on there.
Not that I am aware of.
Okay.
I can make a motion at this point if,
Go
to
ahead.
deny the protest based on the staff recommendation that the numbers are clear. I would also add, in connection with the one part petition and issue, there is no West 25th Street address. So, that even lends additional support that the writer here wrote West 23rd Street from my perspective. So I would move to deny the protest and allow the candidate to be on the.
I'll second that, but for the sake of the protester, I know, Joe, you say this very eloquently in like legal terms. Can you explain why you're making your motion? I just think it's because I think you can articulate it better than most.
I'm just going to repeat actually what our chair said. I think that in his opening remarks, I mean, I do think that we do have a duty to construe, where there's a discrepancy, to err on the side of allowing, folks to be on the ballot where there is not clear and convincing evidence to the contrary, and that we look at these things with a mind toward allowing ballot folks to be on the ballot. I just don't see that there's clear and convincing evidence that these are not not written as our staff intended or as we are interpreting them. So I'm not sure what you were. I don't know what I said.
That's exactly.
Before,
we have to look at this with a broad lens.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
And
You're eloquent.
And
Go
what is
for
the
it.
intent? Not as eloquent as you, but I mean, certainly Mr. McGee walked a tightrope here, bringing in just a few more than the required amount of signatures. So this is why we constantly tell people to bring in double or triple the amount that you need, so that situations like this don't happen. So you're going to get on the ballot really by, a hair, and,
He actually submitted 5 other petitions and he threw out.
oh.
So I think
I do
there's
stand corrected.
So just.
And I just one other
Wait,
thing.
excuse me, just, we have a motion and we have a second, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're having more discussion.
Yes.
Ms. Sticken, go ahead and Ms. Chabot.
But just to be clear, there were extras that weren't counted. It seems like 201 is what was deemed to be valid, correct? And then, but it does seem like we do, and maybe the motion should reflect this, there is now an understanding we're at 200, am I correct? Because the protest did yield, I believe there's a concession on, what is it, petition 15/3, line 10, is being conceded with the incorrect house number. So we're really, so this would take it to 200. And an examination of the others, that's still 200 is what's required.
Sure, so a friendly amendment to the
Yeah.
motion to accept the 200 and to deny the protest on that basis.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes, I wanted to say, we did not actually discuss the date on the date that was in question.
That, what, we didn't, what do you mean we didn't?
We did not.
Who's we?
The board.
The board. The board discussed it. We did
Yeah,
discuss
yeah.
The actual date.
Yeah, so the question is, with the year not being listed, so I asked her, that was my, because you pointed that out, being that there's a question on the date, and it was advised to the board that the year wasn't required essentially. So that was my question.
6/13. That whole,
6/13.
right, 6/13 is sufficient. Thank you.
But raised on your protest, so, it's good, this is a good process for us, I mean, we appreciate, and also this is making sure, there's a lot of petitions and signatures, so I appreciate the protest, and I think we did examine and look at everything.
Thank you, Ms. Sticken. Ms. Chabot, you wanted to add something?
No, I think it got covered, and I do want to thank the protest. We always appreciate the protesters for coming down and focusing our attention. Our staff does a really good job, though, and I always tend to be deferential to them. But we do take the extra time to look when we've been asked to look more carefully. So thank you for coming down.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. I guess I just want to say this started in early July when she reached out to the staff, to me, writing to me about her concerns. And then thanks to our staff and Ms. Taylor, they got together, Ms. Edwards, Mr. Lawler, and then eventually our director and deputy director, to look at these and address her concerns. And a lot of questions got answered to her satisfaction, but she had a couple, and that's why we have this process. You still had a couple you want to bring it to this board, 2 Ds and 2 Rs. I appreciate that. And I want to know that we appreciate you bringing this to our attention. I will reiterate again that, we are under some guidance from the Secretary of State. They have a manual that says we're not to be too technical, unreasonable, or arbitrary, and given the unique set of facts that the petitions present to us. So we're directed by our secretary to kind of be a little more liberal in our, and then the only time that the signatures that are unreadable to the extent it's impossible for the board personnel to query the board's voter registration system to check a signature or address. And so based on that guidance we get from the Secretary of State, in addition to the recommendations from our staff, which we defer to for a lot of our information and guidance, I'm going to support the motion too. So I don't have anything else to add. Does anybody else have anything?
No, I think you laid it out. The signatures seem to match. A lot of this is interpreting very close calls on handwriting, and but I appreciate the analysis, and it did obviously yield a correction from the board. So appreciate you very much.
All right, hearing no other comments, so all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you both for coming down. Mr. Lawler, thank you. You need that petition.
This is for you, I think, right? It's not mine, right?
Okay, I think we have 2 other matters, a personnel agenda and that I'd like to go briefly in executive session about in.
I'm sorry.
Oh, right. Oh, he is. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to have public comment. We're going to go into executive session.
So we should do it right now, right?
Yeah. No, he mentioned the Secretary of State, you may be aware, is in the building, seeing our early in-person voting, and I understand he may be coming up here for the meeting. But we only have 2 agenda items left. One is public comment. Is there any public comment, Mary? No. No? Okay. No one's heard to be on that. And the other is a personnel matter that I would like to briefly go into executive session over. And so, if you want to, I don't know about staff, Tony and Tony, I'd like both Tonys to come in if they could, and Mark, you're welcome to also.
We're gonna move or stay here.
I'm sorry?
We moving or staying here?
No, we can go into an office. So I will make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment. Thank you. Second, Ms. Sticken,
Yes.
Mr. Wondolowski, Ms. Chappelle,
Yes.
Hastings, yes. Okay. Thank you all. I don't know what you want to do with your staff. I don't know that we need them.
Just have him knock on the door. Say hi to the board members. Okay, so we'll be in my office.
You can wait. Is he coming up right now?
2 to 4 minutes.
You want to wait? What, you want to just wait here then?
I mean, we
You
can't.
can talk
One
with
of
the
those
staff.
things he's.
Why don't you have your staff come back then? Staff, could you have the staff come back? Please? We might have just gonna be here.
I do want to say something to him though, so.
Yeah, I mean, afterwards. you wanna
Oh,
talk?
is he gonna talk? He's
Well, I'm
not-
just thinking if he's gonna come up, let him talk to everybody. And he's with, then we'll go in.
I just want to tell
You wanna come back
lunch
off,
at dinner with my mentee.
Okay.
Who I had actually reached out to before you said what I said, I had told him I didn't want to be a member again. Not because I didn't have that experience, but my thing was I had too many credits and they're not running a care at the moment. I didn't enter and still carry over.
Jeff, do you need me to hang around?
No, there's no.
I just want to tell him that. She has a picture.
That's what Tony told me. So the two
I guess
of
he
them-
called her.
Oh, really?
I don't know if he called her first.
So well, just a quick motion. I'm gonna make a motion to come out of executive session. Second,
Temporary,
Lisa?
I'll second that.
All right, Dave,
Coming back
yes?
to the public?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you,
All
yes.
right.
Yes, yes.
All right, we're out of executive.
Mike said he was finishing up with the report.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought, no, I was like, oh, they got it.
We told him in advance that if it's a board
That's
Oh, yeah,
perfect.
But we said, so we can't give you a hard. We don't
No,
know.
sometimes Jeff is very efficient.
Oh, yeah. No, but he was.
No, that's,
Oh, this is,
that's when you used to be chairperson. He's
no, I
done
don't
those
think
things.
so. Oh, yeah.
No, you-
Sorry, what were you passing over?
Nothing, I'm just putting
I'm just
organized.
picking up stuff, okay. Just picking up your stuff.
So is it easier doing this in person or virtually?
Well, virtual, so I don't have to go anywhere.
There you go.
You know, we had there was some interesting discussion about why this wasn't continued. Senate, president didn't want it just because of
Remote.
remote, but that many public bodies were saying they were getting more participation. I guess a few people were ruining it for the rest of us. They were on a frolic and hiding in and not really.
That's interesting. I mean, I think it's convenient.
In the Zoom?
Yeah. It's convenient, it's for the public even.
Yeah.
That was the argument. Aaron was talking, Valerie gave a great presentation, he was talking about the different arguments that were made, some in support of continuing it or having that as an option for public bodies, and then others who didn't want to do it, and it was really mostly because the president was like, this whole school.
Well, technology. Well, the public can still participate virtually, it's just us to vote.
They may still be on YouTube, our meetings can be on YouTube, so they can, they don't get to participate, they don't do the public participation that way unless it's Zoom.
You can allow it if you want, but there's
On
no
YouTube?
entitlement.
On YouTube?
Oh, not YouTube, no.
No, but I'm saying.
On Zoom you could, but you're right, not required.
Yeah. it's a
I mean,
little
I will
slow.
tell you, we
Local
felt,
access.
like, our city council went a lot with Zoom, like.
Did they really?
So, you know, we ended up doing, was we went to the community center, which is big, and we spread out, everyone had their own little table. And so
So
for
that's real
instance,
public participation.
but the other thing we did too is, you know, we still had the Zoom set up, but we let people email comments, and we could read them on the record.
Okay.
And so that way people, because, you know, you had varying degrees of people who are older or not in college, just still didn't want to out. So I just think you don't want to just let they can't help or, you know, so.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they could continue it in some way, at least for that, you know, public participation.
Yeah, not to mention too, it's like, the more people know what you're doing, the better. And then they're not surprised, oh, I didn't know about this, well, and they don't come to the meetings. So.
Yeah.
Some people got special carve outs, like university trustees, they were able to do it.
You're
continue.
kidding me.
Yeah, they carved out specific bodies.
Oh, I didn't know. Why is that? Oh, just better lobbying? Well, I know, mental health, some of the hospitals don't have to do it.
They're
They meet
exempt
by
from-
Zoom,
Yeah.
yeah.
The public hospital.
Public hospitals, it's just not fair. Do we have an equal protection plan?
I don't know, protected class, fundamental right, yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting. They would carve out, I mean, they can do what they want. They can carve out what they want.
Yeah, I don't know what the rationale was.
It's interesting to see.
Yeah, that's too bad, it's good enough for them, why not?
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Actually, so there's a Bose, is it Bose that needs to be a partner? So you're from- Bose, or-
Oh, Kristen Booth?
she's a partner, yeah.
Yeah.
Her husband is a doctor,
Yes.
and she works with my wife.
Oh, really?
And I said, 'cause she
Okay.
had mentioned that when we were talking yesterday. I said,
Yeah, Kristen Booth, yeah. Oh, she's wonderful. Oh, my God. She's a great
Sue
person,
thinks the
good
world of us.
lawyer. Yeah, great.
Where are you hearing about the 11th congressional? Our girl's gonna win this thing.
I better, she better.
Which
I
one's gonna
hope.
win, Chantal?
Chantal.
Or Chantal?
I hope Chantal.
I think she's surging.
You're a
How can you not win how can you not win when Clyburn endorsed us?
Clyburn endorsed.
Oh, my God.
Hey, you get all this?
No,
I do.
Joyce is my, yeah, I don't think about
Are they
it.
recording us?
Yeah, we're in public session.
Oh, there's the
Here
secretary.
we go, okay.
All right, Mr. Secretary, thank you for coming. We appreciate you having you. And staff has stayed here too. You have the floor. It's public comment period, Mr. Secretary. So would you like to make a comment to the public?
My public comment is thank you for the great work that you all do, along with your very professional and hardworking staff. I think a lot of people that are just sort of normal voters who don't realize that this is bipartisan work, right? And sometimes it feels like in DC that Republicans and Democrats can't agree what day of the week it is, but you all work well together in a collegial and friendly way, because you put the voters first, and that's the responsibility that I think that we all have. I was downstairs just talking to the members of the press, and we were encouraging people to request their absentee ballot right now, if that's how they want to vote, to come in and vote early throughout the next 2 weeks, as well as to make their plan for election day, if that's their preference, and to sign up to be a poll worker, because I know that we're still a couple hundred shy of the number where we want to be for that. So thanks for all the work that you all do.
Well, thank you for your leadership, Mr. Secretary. I tell you from my experience, you are a big, big help in your office bringing poll workers in for this November election. And without your help, we would have been a little behind the 8 ball. So I appreciate those efforts. And
My goal was to send so many your way that you all said uncle and hey. We can't. But we had 5 different recruiting programs, and those ideas came from you all, the elections officials throughout the state. 5 different recruiting programs that resulted in statewide 56,000 poll workers, which is a record-breaking number. So anyway, great to be back here in Cleveland. By the way, if anybody hasn't done this yet, I went for a run this morning on the new section of the towpath trail down in Flats. It is awesome. Take your families down there for a walk or a bike ride or whatever else. It's really cool.
I'll ride my bike. I'm not running.
I'd like to just extend my thanks too for the mentorship program. So I've done it twice now. It just so happens I had dinner last night with the new first African-American female board member for Lorraine County. And so she posted, I'm not on Facebook, posted on Facebook about our, mentor-mentee dinner. And I think it's a really good program. It really allows us to be able to intersect and connect with our peers in other boards of election. So thanks for implementing that mentorship program. We had a ball last night for dinner. So
She's great.
I
I
know.
met her for the first time at the elections officials conference.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of knowledge out there.
Yeah.
And you all have mentored others in other ways. And you may remember this last year, actually it was 2019, when our friends at the Lucas County Board of Elections were working through some challenges. We said, hey, instead of us coming up from Columbus and telling you how things should be, why don't we connect you with one of your fellow boards? And I said, here, the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections is an example of a well-run urban board of elections. And you all sent some team members over there a year and a half ago to Toledo, made that trip down the turnpike and talked to them about some ideas about how they could improve their operations. And so that kind of thing is very much appreciated. We're all in this together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Secretary.
you.
Absolutely. Take
Appreciate it.
care.
Take care.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming. I will make a motion to go into executive session in a second. Second. For purposes of discussing employment matters, Ms. Sticken,
Yes.
Mr. Wondolowski.
Yes.
Hastings, yes, Ms. Schuster.
Yes.
All right, we'll be brief. Thank you all for staying. Appreciate it, staff.
You.
Thank you. You have some information.
I do.
I almost suggest that. Thank you. And it's key, that's key.
Well, we got.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody's been asking about that. Everybody's been waiting for that. That's why I said, yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, I would just let it. One thing is really warm in here. So going forward, Steve is not. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would like you to be here. If we're gonna be Zoom and everything. Except at Martha. He just doesn't. Do they have me or just try to introduce? Okay. So you know.
I'll see you next time. I may still comment first, and I guess it'll be case by case. The sound is better when you hear it first. You get a little bit of
Good to see you.
All right, take it easy.
That was her main competition. The site, so we're doing that as fight. The people love it. You don't get it, you don't like it. No. Fight for what you fight for, what you really stand out. My main competition. That's all. Let the people. Yeah. Absolutely. at the house. Guess you don't need a car, just come across the street, John. Yeah.
Oh my God, no.
Nice.
Do you want to kind of do?
I'm gonna make it.
That started over a couple of years ago.
Oh, no, no, no.
But yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
No, no, I definitely need to. Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to come out of executive session in a second.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. And Ms. Sticken?
Yes.
Mr. Wondolowski?
Yes.
Hastings, yes. Ms. Chappelle?
Yes.
Okay, we're out of session and we have one agenda item left. It is the recommendation to hire Matthew Canfield as an election official operations clerk in the fiscal department. I'll move to do so. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing on all those in favor, aye.
I,
Opposed?
No, I was voting aye after our discussion, so I'm voting with you.
Okay,
It's slow, I'm
All
so
right,
sorry.
so that was unanimous decision. And
Okay.
anything else from our board members?
I will not be here on the 16th. I will be here on the
We'll
23rd.
see that you're excused, sir.
Thank you.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Recess.
Oh, we're
Oh,
recess. I'm sorry. I'm going to make a motion to recess.
Okay.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And I just give you a heads up, the two congressmen are coming, and I forwarded that email, just so you know.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm terrible to be up here to see my congressman, Joyce.
Joyce, yes,
Yeah.
will be
I
in
will
June.
not,
And
what time is he coming?
second?
August 2nd.
Yeah.
Morning, yeah.
Oh, I may be.
And